want to take a closer look at the cortex now that we've gone over it in at one scale and in using one set of terminology. Let's use a different set of terminology. And this is frustrating, I know, but there are multiple nomenclatures for naming parts of the brain. This one, though, I like. It's very systematic, and I think once you get a hang of it, you'll see what I mean. So, what was this sulcus called? The central sulcus. You see this sulcus right here? It's ahead of the central sulcus. So that is called the pre-central sulcus. And this sulcus, what do you think? Post central sulcus. Now, this gyrus that we said is the primary motor cortex, let me pick a different color to indicate gyri. This gyrus is just ahead of the central sulcus, right? Remember when I told you when I first see a brain, I identify the lateral facial and the central sulcus. Those are very key because the name of this gyrus is the pre-central gyrus. Guess what this is? Easy. Post central gyrus, aka the primary somatosensory cortex. Now, the rest of the frontal lobe looks a mess, but it's actually not as bad as it looks. What I'll do now is I'm going to encircle 3 horizontal gyri. Now, the naming scheme for these gyri is simple. It's a 3-part name. Part 1 is it superior, middle, or inferior? Part 2 is what lobe are you in? And part 3, is it a gyrus or a sulcus? So this top one, superior, right? We'll list them down here. It says superior frontal gyrus. How about this middle guy? Yeah, middle frontal gyrus. And inferior frontal gyrus. Now, between these 3 gyri, we have these 2 sulci. Now, when you have 2 sulci, the top one is superior. Let's see, where should we write this here? So it's the superior frontal sulcus. And this second guy is the inf- ah, inferior frontal sulcus. What gyrus is Broca's area in? I just want you to think about those kinds of questions. We can do a very similar thing in the temporal lobe. Here we go. So I will encircle 3 gyri in the temporal lobe. You can see them probably already. 1, try to do a better job. 2, and 3. Naming scheme. This is going to be the superior temporal gyrus. And this will be middle temporal gyrus. And this guy will be inferior temporal gyrus. And just like we had with the front, there are 2 sulci in between these gyri. Here's 1, roughly. And here's the other. What is this called? How about this? Superior temporal sulcus. And inferior temporal sulcus. Now in the parietal, we split it into the superior parietal lobule and the inferior parietal lobule, but you don't have to worry about that. This is plenty. What gyrus is the primary auditory cortex in? Where does the what stream go? Where does the where stream go? I'd like you to ask these kinds of questions to put it all together. This is a different brain with labeling using the nomenclature mostly that I just taught you. Precentral sulcus, central sulcus, postcentral sulcus, postcentral gyrus, precentral gyrus, and so on and so forth. Superior, middle, inferior frontal gyrus, the sulci, and so on.